He gazed at me from across the table and he said, and I'll never forget, he said, "Never did I see a person as beautiful as you, inside and out." He smiled, I smiled. He looked into my eyes and I into his, dark brown with a cheeky glint. I've never had a moment quite like it. His words were ringing in my ears as the waves lapped the shore, and as the evening sun's glow warmed my skin. No one has ever spoken to me with such generosity. Not until that moment, and not after it. I won't deny, it made me feel that he made me feel quite girlish. I felt seen, and also a little embarrassed, you know. Then I thought, actually, you're right. I am a beautiful person. I complimented him on his intelligence for noticing, and for his English. Whilst his accent was thick, the structure of his sentences and his flirtful use of vocabulary was indeed impressive. You often find that with Turk's mind. Eager to please, Ahmet was a darling. Quite romantic, playful, and at times rather a tease. He's dead now. Drowned. Several years ago, as I understand it. Boating accident, I believe. The most intelligent man I've had the pleasure of meeting. Gone. I don't see I'll ever get the opportunity to go back. Not now. With Ahmet gone, it seemed a little pointless anyway. We could have married, you know. Ahmet and I. I remember him trying to teach me Turkish words. He'd say, "Gule gule," each time we'd part, instead of bye-bye. I think he was pulling my leg. Very often he'd whisper into my ear, "Çok konuşma be." Such a beautiful language. Very romantic. I've no idea what it means, mind. It always put me in my place, though. I kept a diary. Well, I always do. I blush now just reading some of it. Silly, I know. It may have only been 3 days that we knew each other, but it seemed much, much longer. I'd go as far to say that I enjoyed those 3 days with Ahmet more than any of the 37 years married to Keith. I was meant for warmer climates. Not Keith. He burns like a Rizzler paper. No sooner than he thinks of the sun, he's blistering up like bubble wrap. The times I've wasted waiting indoors of apartments because he's sprawled out on the bed, soothing his sunburn with natural yogurt. And foreign TV, that's not up to much. Once I had to cut him out of his trousers. His legs had swollen so much. I wouldn't mind, but we'd only been there a day. I'd sooner travel alone. He's not great when it comes to flying either. He prefers that flight times are under 90 minutes, which limits us rather, destination-wise, you know. He's insistent on getting a meal on the plane, which is not easy these days, I tell you. You can guarantee there's always a passenger on board with a nut allergy too, so that's those out of the window. What drives me most around the bend is that we must learn the flight safety instructions before boarding the plane. Well, he used to work in the health and safety department for the manufacturing plant of high-end luxury designer goods in Harkside, didn't he? Well, before retiring in June last year. It was an executive role. Director. Before we'd go away, he'll have me role-play safety instructions, with a cheese grater on a bit of elastic for an oxygen mask, and a couple of Hoover bags for the inflatable life jacket. He once had me disembark the settee on a draft excluder, instead of the inflatable slide. Ever since that incident at the factory, he's been a bit over the top, safety-wise. I said to him, there's being safety-conscious, Keith, and then there's letting it rule your life. That incident was involving a forklift truck, not a Boeing 747. I'm not entirely sure there's much we can do anyway from 30-odd thousand feet in the air. Would he have it? Would he buggery? He said, "We have a duty and obligation to understand and adhere to safety measures. Our diligence is paramount." I switched off. I don't remember what he said exactly. Along those lines, went on longer than it needed to, and it bored the life out of me. It's about the only thing I'd give him a gold star for. Boring me. I think it's all a load of nonsense anyway. What good would one of those life jackets be on a plane? Have you seen one? Aside from the fact that they would clash with every outfit, they're thin. All those holiday makers on their way back from sunning themselves, shorts, t-shirts, sarongs, if the plane were to crash or land in the middle of the ocean, it'll be cold. Those little vests, they're not going to keep you warm. And they have that little torch. Oh, well, I bet that's really useful at night when you're stranded in the middle of the ocean. And as for the whistle... Mind you, saying that, I watched a programme about the Titanic. There was this young gal bobbing around on a door in the middle of the Atlantic. She does no more than get a whistle off a dead chap, must have worked for the White Star Line, I reckon, by his attire, and in fairness, she blew it and a boat came back for her. So, maybe I'm being harsh about it all. All these holiday talkers maybe want to get booking now. A cruise, maybe. Although Keith doesn't like boats. Surprise, surprise. I just wish I didn't have to go with him. Don't get me started on how he behaves in airports. A total embarrassment he is. Plus, he insists on travelling with a travel pillow. It's in the shape of a winking pigeon. Can't sleep on a plane without it, he says. Then to boot, we have the eye mask, which says, "Napping in progress. Please don't disturb my dreams." Makes me want to disturb his face. Disturb his dreams? Cheek, considering he killed mine when we married. Don't get me started on his novelty hats. Well, he says they aren't novelty, but I assure you, they can't be anything other. Oh, and he carries with him a utility belt that he created especially for travelling. Yes, fashioned it himself, although fashion, use that term loosely. It has everything. Mosquito spray, Factor 50 sunscreen, first aid kit, Savlon spray, Swiss Army knife. I could go on and on. It has everything you could possibly need for safe travels, says Keith. He looks like a complete moron wearing it. Oh, and it's strapped around his waist no sooner than the luggage is off the conveyor at our destination. He calls it his safe-travelled utility belt. I call it his "you look like an arsehole and an embarrassment, Keith" belt. Well, I don't actually say that, but I think it. And I can see in the eyes of others that they think it too. You know. The cloth on the table was paper, would you believe? Disposable. It had a clip either side, to prevent it from blowing in the breeze, I suspect. I never mentioned Ahmet to anyone before. Keep my diary well hidden, make no mistake. Oh, some might say I'm crazy, or that I'm being silly over a holiday romance. But I treasure the memories dearly, as it's the only romance I've ever had. And I'll tell you this. When it comes to Ahmet, Keith could never measure up. You know.